Language is one of the most amazing things that we humans do. It separates us from the animals, gives us theatre, poetry and songs. It shapes our identity and allows us to express emotions. It makes us laugh. It makes us cry. It allows us to record our histories and imagine our futures.
Oh my goodness, this is magical.
In this program, I'm going to explore language's physical incarnation, our greatest invention, writing. Since its birth, 5,000 years ago, the written word has given us civilization and technology. I'm going to reveal how it's transformed the way we interpret and explore our world, how we organize our religions and governments, and how we spread our ideas and our laws. How writing allows us to listen to the past and to speak to the future. But is writing here to stay, or is it just a flash in the pen?
บางคนยกมือ
Learning to talk, like learning to walk, is a natural part of growing up. It's something that children the world over do instinctively. But while spoken language is an innate part of the human operating system, something we've been doing for maybe only 50,000 years, the ability to read and write is an optional extra.
Reading and writing are not a natural state of affairs. It's just something that's been invented to complement utterance, spoken human language. In fact, it's not necessary or essential for communication at all, and there are hundreds of societies around the world which have existed for centuries perfectly happily without feeling the need to write down their language. The Aka here in North Thailand is one such.
While anthropologists might attribute the lack of writing to the culture's self-sufficient economy, the Aka have their own story. According to myth, they were given writing by the first spirit, Unma, on a buffalo hide. But the Aka don't have a written language now, so what on earth happened?
It was written down on buffalo skin.
Yes,
right.
and then take it back home.
Yeah.
And then wherever they go, they just carry the buffalo skin.
Yeah.
And then one day they went out and then wet by the rain, hit by the rain.
Right.
And then they're trying to dry nearby the fire.
Yes.
And they become nice smell.
Oh, right, it's meat.
They ate it up.
So the guardians of the Aka alphabet ate up.
Ate up.
I see.
Since those days, we don't have right.
Since then you rely on your memory.
Yes.
Yeah.
Traditionally, the Aka keep in their heads and pass on verbally all their culture, their myths, stories, and their entire history, all the way back to their founding father, their Adam.
And so that's all in your head. How many generations?
For my clan in this day, 53 generations up to me.
Do you learn songs as well?
Yes, I learn. But for my generation, the memory not so good because I learn school system.
Right.
Everything have to read it down.
Yes.
Aju, like the rest of the literate world, now uses writing rather than his brain to remember things. And rather than fight progress, he wants the next generation to learn to read and write so they can preserve their culture on the page. Reading and writing will give them access not just to their past, but to that of the rest of the world.
สวัสดีจ้านักเรียน
Writing lets us discover things about cultures far away in space and time. And some of the oldest writing is here at the British Museum. So how and why did it start?
The British Museum has thousands of objects with writing on them, some of them more than 5 millennia old. It's a matter of intense debate amongst the curators of the various departments here as to who has the oldest. The Egyptologists claim that they have the edge, while the Assyriologists, they maintain that therefore cuneiform writing is the oldest. Either way, it seems that writing was not invented for the purposes of writing love poems or novels or prayers, but actually for the rather more mundane purpose of taxation and accountancy.
As societies grew and flourished in the cradle of civilization, today's Iraq, so did the need for bureaucracy and record-keeping. Who owes what to whom? This early clay tablet records the payment of workers in beer. Behind the scenes at the museum, Dr. Irving Finkel, keeper of the Department of Assyriology, is giving some students a lesson in writing cuneiform the traditional way, on a piece of clay with a reed. I'm attempting to write my name.
So an upright like that, and then that, and that.
Right.
So sort of more, well, it's not quite, it's a bit too big.
Well, it's assertive.
It's and then one upright.
The first teachers of writing used to beat their students. I hope Dr. Finkel doesn't subscribe to such violent methods.
Stephen,
Yeah.
as you know, cuneiform writing is the oldest form of writing in the history of the world.
Yeah, I
Don't
knew
let
that.
anybody dissuade you of any other truth.
Right.
And it began in ancient Iraq.
Right.
And various remarkable things have to be stressed. Firstly, that the people who invented writing had no idea what was going to be the consequence. They did it for local bureaucratic reasons,
Yes.
because they had to keep books and accounts and incoming and outgoing goods and so forth like that. That's how it all began. And nobody had a vision of giving writing to the world.
That it was going to end up with Shakespeare and Proust and
Precisely.
Barbara Cartland.
But once it started in the world, it never stopped. And like a snowball, it grew and grew and grew until it's become the kind of intellectual prop of Homo sapiens. So it's a very significant thing. And in our department, to do with ancient Mesopotamia, we have the earliest evidence. So what I brought firstly to show you is a real tablet. This was written by a schoolboy in about 1700 BC.
Good Lord.
The most wonderful thing is there is one example of this, a tablet like this with on the back there is a caricature of the teacher. And this teacher has a goofy kind of tooth and a stupid expression on his face. And this is clearly a pupil who is fed up to his back teeth with writing.
This is it's his rough book, his exercise book.
Yeah, and in my view, there's something really important to be learned, which is the human beings who made these things are absolutely close to us.
That there are voices singing out of these apparently dead objects.
Exactly so. The dazzling wonder of the human mind, as we know it today forcefully, in my view, is there to be plucked out of these documents.
Of course, cuneiform wasn't just used to write bills and accounts. In no time at all, people started writing poems, love letters, and legends. Written stories like the Epic of Gilgamesh give us a glimpse into a different world, a world where writing itself was a source of power. Writing allowed rulers to lay down the first laws, send secret messages in battles, and write their own versions of events. Only a few highly trained scribes could read and write this complex script, but in doing so, they took humans from prehistoric times into the pages of history.
Writing was developed separately and independently all over the world, and by 1200 BC, it was flourishing in India, China, Europe, and Egypt. Now, while some ancient scripts have yet to be deciphered even to this day, the language of the pharaohs, hieroglyphs, has been successfully translated and transcribed thanks to the Rosetta Stone.
The same inscription on this stone is written 3 times, in ancient Greek, Egyptian Demotic script, and the original Egyptian hieroglyphs. These 3 scripts allowed hieroglyphs finally to be deciphered.
The phrase Rosetta Stone has become a kind of metaphor for anything that is a key part in the process of decoding, translating, or solving a difficult problem. But all written language is a form of code, and without the ability to read, it just becomes as incomprehensible as the marks on this rock are, to me at least.
The alphabet allowed, I suppose, what you might call a democratization of reading and writing. And the alphabet that we use came to us via the Romans, from that great democratic civilization, ancient Greece. Greeks were famous for epic stories. Homer's Iliad and Odyssey told tales of wars and adventures all around the Mediterranean, but Homer himself didn't write.
Some romantically minded scholars have proposed that a brilliant contemporary of Homer invented the alphabet in order to record the poet's oral epics, the Iliad and the Odyssey. Seems unlikely, but Homer himself does give us a clue as to the origins of writing. In the Iliad and the Odyssey, he mentions the Phoenicians, traders who traveled the Mediterranean in ships.
The Phoenicians were the great merchants of antiquity, with ports in modern-day Syria, Lebanon and Israel, and all over the Mediterranean. But they didn't just transport goods, they introduced a whole new way of writing, the alphabet. Theirs was the mother of all alphabets, including our own.
You're an extraordinarily accomplished fellow. You don't just dig around in sites, you actually can write Phoenician. So maybe you can show me the alphabet.
Absolutely.
Give me a sense of how it looks. Shall we have a... Oh,
Yeah.
You've got a... Okay.
Yeah, so just for example, the letter Aleph in Proto-Canaanite or in Canaanite script, it was in the shape of a head of an ox. Sorry for my drawing, but later it was transformed in Phoenician or early Phoenician into something like this, which is the shape, and of course if you transform it in the right direction you get the alpha or the A or other languages. In later Phoenician inscription was this symbol. Sometimes it even have a small iris. So basically it was transformed into the Omicron, the little O.
Yes.
So it would look something.
For the Phoenicians, the more people who could read and write, the better. The alphabet allowed them to communicate and deal more effectively with foreign trading partners. Spreading the word made sound economic sense.
The really important point about the Phoenician culture is that being a trading culture, it wasn't interested in leaving permanent religious memorials in writing. It was more about taking writing around as a way of facilitating the trade. That was the basis of
Therefore, they got such a bad press because in the Bible they are the bringer of foreign idolatrous cults, the foreign idols, Jezebel, the queen, the Phoenician queen. So these people have never written history, but they got all the bad press from everybody.
And the Phoenicians wrote the records, but they don't survive. For all we know, they
It's
did.
very likely. It's very likely that much was on papyrus and was lost.
Papyrus, like the alphabet, was another Phoenician export. We get our word paper from it. The Greeks gave a collection of papyrus a new name, Biblos, from which we get our word Bible. God in mysterious Sinai's awful cave, to man the wondrous art of writing gave, wrote Blake in his book, Jerusalem. Writing allowed the priests and the rabbis to set in stone their beliefs. Once written, customs became religious laws, and the word of God could not be edited. Writing has allowed one religion, Judaism, to last virtually unchanged for millennia.
Behind me is the Western or Wailing Wall, one of the most sacred places in all Judaism. The written word is integral to worship here. Observant Jewish men have strips of paper with words from Deuteronomy and Exodus on them, and these are carried in little boxes here called phylacteries, which they have strapped to their head and to their left arm as they pray. Other worshippers write down prayers to God on scraps of paper and push them into the cracks and crevices of the wall behind, and it's forbidden to remove them. Twice a year, the rabbi of the wall takes them and buries them in the Mount of Olives.
It's as if the writing itself is sacrosanct and imbued with a special power. And when talking about the power of words in religion, you absolutely cannot ignore Islam.
Just behind the Western Wall, yards from it, is the Dome of the Rock, the third holiest site in Sunni Islam. It's covered in writings, in inscriptions from the Islamic holy book, the Quran. And for Islam, the Arabic script is more than just a writing system invented by man, it's a gift from God. In fact, one of the sayings of the Prophet is that the ink of a scholar is holier than the blood of a martyr. Now, it may be that the Arabic script plays second fiddle to Hebrew here in Israel, but on the world stage it's a very different story. And in fact, Arabic script is second only to our own Roman alphabet for use.
The spread of religion and the spread of writing have gone hand in hand. And with writing so fundamental to faith, it's not surprising that people go to such lengths to protect and preserve the written words of their God.
Glenn is going to show you now is a sample of the book of Psalms, and this is one of what we call
goodness! Now that's the
big
real
scrolls.
thing, isn't it?
Yes, you're looking at it upside down, but this is.
It might as well be upside down to me, but if you want to turn it around the right way.
Okay. We have about 6 such plates.
Yes.
Okay, 6 such pieces. Again, we keep them as they were found. And if you look closely here, even if you can't read Hebrew, every place the name of God is written, exactly, the Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey, it is written in what we call Paleo-Hebrew, which is Hebrew of First Temple times.
So an ancient Hebrew, an older Hebrew.
An older Hebrew.
And that's God, 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 God. So you see every time, and there's quite a lot of him, obviously.
Yes.
He features quite highly.
You're right. Please don't touch.
Oh, sorry, I was touching the glass, wasn't I? Sorry.
Yes.
These documents are so precious that even touching the glass is forbidden. And the next scroll is all about rules and regulations. It's the 10 Commandments.
This is the only copy that contains all of the 10 Commandments.
Oh my goodness! So this is is this the oldest record of the 10 Commandments?
This is the oldest record of the 10 Commandments. Lennon, I want to show them.
Wow! Amazing. Amazing. So that alone of all, it would be the most a priceless document, isn't it? Amazing.
And every child or every grown-up will, when you say the 10 Commandments,
is familiar with
knows
them, exactly.
what you're talking about.
And breaks one of them every day.
And breaks one of them every day. And these are 2,000 years old.
Yeah, that is extraordinary. Extraordinary. These ancient words are now being protected with space-age technology, spectral imaging. By photographing the scrolls under different wavelengths of light, new sections of the text are made visible. Oh, yes. Oh, it's even becoming clear in the dark. Goodness me. Once digitized, all 900 fragments of the scrolls will be made available online to scholars and members of the public. Goodness. Fantastic.
Now,
isn't it wonderful to think that something so old, so I won't say primitive, but at the kind of dawn of writing and everything, is dependent on our age of the most extraordinary technological advances in order to preserve it. It's rather splendid that old meeting new like that. The city of Norwich has a long history of printing. It was the first town in Britain to have a provincial newspaper. English in the Middle Ages was incredibly diverse. Dialects of different regions had different words for the same thing and different spellings. When Caxton brought the printing press to Britain in 1476, he was faced with a dilemma. He couldn't print all the different arbitrary spellings that were spread around the country. By setting words in print, Caxton started to make the English language more stable.
北京电视台纪实高清频道，用心记录世界。
Yes, writing utterly changed the human world. With writing, we could preserve our myths, our stories, and our laws. The alphabet, whether Phoenician, Hebrew, Arabic, Greek, or Roman, allowed more and more people to read and write. But there was yet to come another major revolution in writing that would spread the word further than ever: printing. Now, you might think that printing started in Europe in 1450 with Johannes Gutenberg, but this revolutionary technology, like gunpowder, the compass, and papermaking, was invented in China nearly 400 years earlier. Hi, hello. Hi, I'm Stephen. Stephen Fry. Can you? Yeah, nice to see you. Can you make me one of these chops, one of these with my name? Once carved, block printing is much quicker than handwriting each complex character. Chinese is one of the oldest written languages in the world, and we all know these extraordinary characters or ideograms, and they're familiar as almost as works of art. To the Chinese, they are the start of a lifelong learning process, because you have to learn each one. Each one has particular meaning. And the key difference between Chinese and almost all the other languages of the world, certainly ours, is that there's no hint as to how you say them. What's that like? Well, look behind me there, you can see the number 60. Now, that doesn't tell you to say 60. If you're English, you say 60. If you're French, you'd say 60. If you're German, you'd say 60, and so on. It's a symbol. Imagine that all the numbers from 0 to 2000 had a separate symbol. You'd have to learn them all, and there's no hint how to say them. Unlike most other writing systems which phonetically use symbols or letters to represent the sounds that make up words, Chinese characters or logograms represent whole words. I'm given a cursory lesson in how to write this complex script by entrepreneur philanthropist extraordinaire Sir David Tang and his calligrapher friend Johnson.
Well, pictograms are basically little pictures, right. And Chinese was composed of radicals, which are the roots that you use all the time, the small pictures we use all the time to compose words. Right. And for example, this word moon here, it is sort of a stylized picture of the moon. And then this word for brightness is a composite of two radicals, the sun and the moon. So it goes on like that. So now the ones I think I know, I've seen anyway, is this China? Well, oh, look, I've got one of these brush pens. Wait, I know I'm doing it wrong, but basically that.
Yeah, that will show you up as a very ill-educated boy. Because the order in which you do the stroke is critical. Whenever people see, my uncle, if he sees me writing a word in the wrong order, he would immediately chastise me and say, "You uneducated boy, don't you know how to write that character?" So the proper way is 1 stroke, 2 stroke, 3 and 4. There is no other way of writing this character. Right. And the strokes are very important because that is the way in which you look up a word. This word is wood. It looks like a tree. And if you add 2 more, that's full of trees. Right. And you get add 2 more, which makes 5, that's a forest.
Brilliant. Traditionally, Chinese children have had to learn the meaning of thousands of different characters. Decided that he would institute a new way of rendering Chinese into a sort of phonetic alphabet, a romanization as it's called. The challenge was to represent the many tones of spoken Mandarin with just 26 letters of the Roman alphabet. The system that was adopted was called pinyin. Pinyin allows children to learn the sounds of words and their meanings via the phonetic Roman alphabet. It acts as a stepping stone towards learning the thousands of characters. The man who invented pinyin, Zhao Yuguang, is now 106 and is hailed as a national treasure, but is incredibly modest about his achievements. Is pinyin one of the great achievements of the revolution, do you think? One of the great achievements?
I think
It is not so great.
No?
What do you think? But it is one of the important achievements. If we want to establish a modern country, we must have literacy education. That's very important.
How many were illiterate after?
In Beijing, about 80% people can read the daily papers.
Was it ever your aim, or is it now your aim for pinyin to take over from the Chinese character?
It was impossible. Even you want, you can't do that.
Pinyin has transformed how people in China use technology. A traditional Chinese typewriter had over 2,000 characters. It was slow and unwieldy to use. But by using pinyin on computers and smartphones, people can find the right Chinese character without having them all on a keyboard.
So on this phone, I can choose pinyin. Now if I type, let's say, a word we know, Beijing. Jing. Or that one there, or that one there, or that one there, that one there. But that's the point. That allows you to use the Roman alphabet to find the characters, otherwise it would be impossible.
So it is the simplicity of the alphabet and the ability easily to rearrange letters that gives it its potency as a tool for spreading the word. Movable type freed the written word from the drudgery of hand scribing and allowed it to take flight in printed texts. There's something magical about a bound volume of printed text. I can never forget the moment I first saw a novel that I'd written that had arrived from the printers. I put it on the table and I looked at it and I lowered my eyes to its bevel. I sniffed it, I opened it, I walked and circled it, and I simply couldn't believe that something I had written could end up as that magical thing, bound printed text, a book. Printing would, after Gutenberg, unleash knowledge and new ways of thinking that would change everything. The city of Norwich has a long history of printing. It was the first town in Britain to have a provincial newspaper.
This ivy-clad, willow-lined stretch of the River Wensum in the shadow of Norwich Cathedral was once, hard to believe as it may be, the centre of a kind of Silicon Valley of Europe, because here was a thriving and prosperous print works, and that was the industry that changed the world.
Now all that remains is the John Gerald Printing Museum, run by retired experts from the industry. They're going to help me typeset a poem written by Chaucer, the first English author to be set in print.
I believe that England's first great poet, Geoffrey Chaucer, would rather have liked a printing press. He died just around the time that Gutenberg was being born, so he missed the print revolution. But he certainly gave us an indication that he was rather fed up with the sloppiness of those who copied out his works for readers. In fact, in one of his great poems, Troilus and Cressida, in the Envoi, the bit where he sends his book out to the public, he sort of makes a request that it isn't too badly mangled. He says, "For there is so great diversity in English and in writing of our tongue, so pray I God that none miswrite thee, little book, neither mismeter for default of tongue, and read whereso thou be, or else sung, that thou be understood, God I beseech, but yet to purpose of my rather speech." In other words, he hoped that people would sort of find some way of spelling all the different words, at least in such a manner that it was generally understood by those who were going to listen or read it. And that's what printing allowed.
I'm going to print Chaucer's Envoi with the help of typesetter David Skipper.
What's the plan?
Well, this is the composing case,
right,
with the characters, capitals and lowercase.
Is that why we say uppercase and lowercase?
Why you say uppercase and lowercase is that the
capitals used to be in the uppercase on the frame, and the small letters used to be in the lowercase, and that is upper and lowercase.
So how long did it take for you to train? How old were you when you started?
I was 16 when I started.
So it was a proper apprenticeship?
And I did 5 years, yes. So you pick the character up, you feel for the space on top, and you put it in the stick.
Oh, I see. And for there, we need another E, don't we?
Well, I was doing a piece of text that I saw.
Oh, it's a Chaucerian spelling, is it? Of course, so we don't need another E. And for that, let's have a look what we got here. And for there is so great diversity. It's is so great, and great doesn't have an A in it.
No.
Oh, you've memorised it.
English in the Middle Ages was incredibly diverse. Dialects of different regions had different words for the same thing and different spellings. When Caxton brought the printing press to Britain in 1476, he was faced with a dilemma. He couldn't print all the different arbitrary spellings that were spread around the country. By setting words in print, Caxton started to make the English language more stable. And printed books spread these changes across the country.
He's hoping that when this poem goes out in the world, no one will miscopy it, no one will miswrite it.
Oh, miswrite, I see.
In that sense. It reminds one of the World Wide Web, really, that in 1993 Tim Berners-Lee creates this new system, the World Wide Web, for linking text across different computers, and then within what seems a heartbeat, there are billions of pages of World Wide Web. So that when things take off, they really do take off, don't they?
Yes. And then when you ink the type, you do it diagonally.
I noticed you doing that.
Yeah, because it doesn't push it over so much.
And quite firm, but not too firm.
And then the other way, then you get all the corners. Right, that's enough.
Right.
And then you just check that that's all pushed up like that.
Okay, and I get a piece of nice piece.
2 pieces of
I
card.
noticed you use the yellow paper to go on top.
That's
Is that
right.
just
A couple of sheets just to give a bit of impression.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
So
drop your first one on. That's it.
Nice and straightish. Then that goes on like that.
That's right. And then you just
one roll.
One roll straight across.
Then still magical.
Carefully lift it off.
And voila! Oh, that's brilliant. And for there is a great event. I think Chaucer would be thrilled at that. Yeah. And it looks like proper printing, doesn't it? It looks really gorgeous.
It is proper
That's what I mean, and you can tell.
With printing, the written word truly began to spread. Printed books, like the Phoenician alphabet millennia before, democratized knowledge. Reading was no longer just an activity for the elite, but something that ordinary people could afford to learn to do.
Printing didn't just give rise to greater literacy, it changed people's very attitude towards learning and knowledge. Open inquiry and a questioning of received wisdom greatly increased, and the booksellers of Paris had long been part of a kind of literary underworld, spreading subversive ideas by printed pamphlets, books, leaflets, and newspapers. The printed word fostered a republic of letters, the age of reason, the Enlightenment.
In London, Oxford, Vienna, Edinburgh, Warsaw and Paris, like-minded thinkers congregated to read, as well as to learn from and debate with each other in taverns or coffee houses. One of the oldest and most famous is the Café Procope. This was the haunt of intellectual giants like Rousseau, Voltaire, Franklin, Jefferson and Diderot. So it seems like a good place to meet Enlightenment scholar Dr. Kate Tunstall and find out about the book that embodies the Enlightenment project, Diderot's Encyclopedia.
It's an encyclopedia, it's an Enlightenment project, so it's covering human knowledge in a rational, ordered way, and presumably the world of man and letters and music and poetry and so on, but also the world of nature and science.
Yep.
Could Diderot, was he a master of those subjects as well?
He was a kind of spider at the centre of a web where he was receiving articles from all kinds of people. There were about 140, 150 contributors. And then Diderot receives, we think, all of these articles and produces a whole lot of them himself and needs to coordinate this.
It obviously relied on a man with an extraordinary mind, as you say, like a spider in a web.
Absolutely,
to control all these lines of thought and all these cross-disciplines.
Yeah, you can get those things wrong. I mean, whereas on the web, you can alter those things as you go because it hasn't been printed. Yeah. As soon as it's been printed, if you've forgotten to put the cross-reference in, you're in trouble.
Diderot's aim for his encyclopedia was to assemble each and every branch of human knowledge, creating a volume that had the power to change men's common way of thinking. His project was, in a strictly secular way, as ambitious as the Bible had been.
So a really extraordinary achievement, and not just a sober, setting in stone of world knowledge, but a kind of mischievous undermining of the previous
absolutely.
Sort of church, the ecclesiastical world.
Should we look something up?
Oh, do. Yes, give me some examples.
So I want to tell you my favourite article, which is, Aguaxima, natural history, in brackets afterwards, Brazilian plant. That's all this article says about it. I'm quoting. And I wonder who such a description is made for. It can't be for people who live in the country, because they know what Aguaxima is and that it grows in their region. It would be as if you'd said to a Frenchman that pears grow in France. It's not for us either. Because what do we care that there's a plant in Brazil called Aguaxima? This article leaves ignorant people just as ignorant as they were before. It teaches us nothing. And so if I have decided to mention this plant, it's just to indulge certain kinds of readers who would rather find nothing of interest in an article of a dictionary, or indeed something perfectly stupid, than not find the word in the dictionary at all. That's the end of it.
You imagine late at night and he's had, agave or something, and then he thinks, Aguaxima, why should I bother? But now that I've got the slip of paper that says it's a plant in Brazil, I can't throw it away. I promised to write an encyclopedia.
No, but he feels it's a bit stupid just to say plant in Brazil.
Exactly. No, that's fabulous insight, isn't it?
Very
the workings
good.
Of his mind.
So the project to describe all human knowledge and all sciences, all crafts in these volumes is an extraordinary project. Yeah.
Printing led to an accumulation of knowledge and new ways of thinking. It triggered revolutions in agriculture, industry, and science. And we had more and more books. But what to do with them? The answer was to build more libraries. For the last 20 years, author Robert Coover has been experimenting with interactive text. Is this the way of the future, or just one of the ways?
Oh my goodness, difference, punishment, interruptions. And I'm in a cube.
This is a 3D virtual reality cave, an amazing interface between writer and reader.
Oh my goodness, this is magical.
北京电视台纪实高清频道，用心记录世界。
Almost everything I am, I owe to libraries. When I was a child, there were no great libraries around, certainly nothing like this, but we did have this thing called the mobile library, a van that would come once a fortnight, I think, and I would wait for it like a child waiting for an ice cream van, and I would get on and I would get my supply of books, and they would last me 2 weeks. And then when I was older, I could get to Norwich, the local big city, and I would spend hours and hours and hours there. It's like a will-o'-the-wisp. One book lights another book, which lights another one, which lights another one. I suppose libraries still, for me, have this extraordinary charge. When I get in one, I feel this buzz. It's almost sexual. There's something about the fact that behind all these bound copies, there are voices. There are people murmuring to you, seducing you, dragging you into their world. These are wonderful, magical places. And I suppose if I have a campaign that I'm really behind, it's that of saving our libraries. Because everyone surely has the right to access the voices of the past. Although a Cambridge man, I'm exploring one of the oldest and most impressive libraries in the world, Oxford University's library, the Bodleian. No one, no matter how important, can actually borrow books from this library, and in order to become a reader, I have to pledge an oath. I hereby undertake not to remove from the library or to mark, deface or injure in any way any volume, document or other object belonging to it or in its custody. The oath was intended to protect the 11 million books and countless priceless manuscripts that are housed here.
So here is a fantastic transition between manuscript and print. You have handwork for the illumination, and you have print to print the main part of the text, but it's on vellum. And so to Ferdinand of Naples, who may well have felt slightly uneasy about the new technology of print, this would have been much more familiar to him.
But these days, the library has another challenge: how to stay relevant in a digital age. While the internet has many mundane uses, from booking holidays to doing our weekly grocery shop, it also has a colossal impact on the way we consume words and knowledge. We can access, almost instantaneously, an enormous repository of information at the mere click of a button or swipe of a finger.
What really marks a great library out is how the collections are used, how access is provided, and the kinds of environments, both physical and virtual, that you're able to provide scholars and the whole interested public with access to information. This great archive that we're responsible for, and the whole kind of library world is collectively responsible for, it really needs to be used to be, meaningful.
Will you move in the next 100 years away from receiving atomic matter? And will you actually ask publishers instead of providing you with physical books?
That process has already begun, and it's really actually driven by the publishers. So there are now many publishers who only publish electronically. Right. So we have to do digital preservation now.
So you have library shelves, but you also have racks of servers?
We certainly do. And so we also have staff whose job it is to keep stuff safe. To keep the bits alive, so that scholars in 400 years' time will be able to access the information that's being produced now, just as we're able to access the information printed by
it's a different expertise. We're producing and consuming more and more words in a digital form. But do our technological advances mean that the printed version of the book will become as moribund as the clay cuneiform tablet? Professor Robert Darnton, director of Harvard University Library, is an expert on the history of books.
Well, I have been invited to so many conferences on the death of the book that I'm convinced it's very much alive, and we have statistics to prove it. Each year, more books are produced than the previous year. There was a dip during the recession, but next year there will be 1 million new titles produced worldwide. And yet at the same time, more digital works are coming out, and the future is decidedly digital. But I think we're living in a time of transition in which the two media coexist, and I think that's what makes it so exciting.
And they'll continue to coexist?
Well, one thing we've learned in the history of books, which is a huge expanding field, is that one medium does not displace another. So, of course, as you know, the radio did not displace the newspaper, and television did not kill the radio, and the internet did not destroy television, and so on. So I think actually what's happening now is that the electronic means of communication, all kinds of handheld devices in which people read books, are actually increasing the sales of ordinary printed books.
Well, the same number of people are reading more, one or the other.
I think both. But that I can't absolutely prove. However, it's certain, I think, that a lot of people use handheld electronic devices for one kind of reading, and they use a codex for another kind of reading, and that the interest in availability of books online is getting people more excited about reading in general. So I think it's a fascinating moment when reading itself is undergoing a change.
I like to have a foot in both camps, the shiny new digital world of technology and the traditional path to knowledge which is embodied by the library. I do hope that libraries survive. They're more than just buildings, in the same way that books are more than just print and paper.
As the poet, philosopher and political theorist John Milton said, books are not absolutely dead things. They do contain a potency of life. He who destroys a book kills reason itself. Perhaps that's why, as we all know, one of the first acts of a tyrant is to destroy a library and to burn books. They want to control literature, and the elitists want to hoard the power and the knowledge that is contained in books.
But digital words cannot be burned, and myriad connections of the web make online information mercurial. The internet is not only radically transforming our way of storing what we write, it is bringing about a new raft of changes in what is written and who writes it. A man who has pioneered our exploration of this new technological frontier is the founder of Wikipedia, Jimmy Wales.
When we look back at the history of the encyclopedia, Diderot, the French encyclopedist, the basic philosophy of Wikipedia is essentially the same. They had the idea of collecting the world's knowledge and making it more accessible to more people. And they did an amazing job. But one of the problems that the traditional encyclopedia form always had is that, you know, once it's done and you publish it, it's done. And it's really hard to revise, really hard to update. Whereas the next edition of Wikipedia, well, it happened since I started the sentence.
One of the reasons Wikipedia can update so quickly is that it's written by the public rather than a select group of editors.
That whole process just couldn't exist in the past. You know, it was a one-way medium. A few people wrote and everybody else read. Now everybody's participating in the writing. And I think that you just can't dismiss that as you know, it's one thing to read a book and feel like you understand political philosophy. It's another thing to go out and have a discussion or a debate about it and realize how little you actually knew, how much more deeper and richer your understanding is with other people, you know, discussing things with you. Wikipedia is a part of the long-term Enlightenment trend. It's part of this idea that everyone should have access to knowledge, that the democratization of information is good for the world. One type of search that people do is they just want to know something. You know, you hear on the news in Azerbaijan and you think, oh, Azerbaijan, I kind of sort of know where that is and I don't really remember. And you just go and you look it up and you just go and you say, okay, now I understand what the situation is there and all those kinds of things. That's a very human impulse, this desire to know things.
So we are at an event horizon where publishers could disappear and a whole new way of experiencing writing is in the offing. I asked the author Hanif Qureshi.
Is it the same thing to read a digital book as a physical book?
Well, I think there'll be new kinds of books made because people will read them on iPads and so on, which means that they can use bits of film, yes. They can use colour, they can use drawings, they can introduce footnotes that go on for pages and pages. So I think the new technology is a fantastic opportunity for new forms, you know, just as the invention of film, you know, then we had the cinema digital, then we had new forms of pop music and so on. I think that the iPad particularly will generate writers to make new forms of books and new forms of writing that we haven't even thought of yet.
Right.
For the last 20 years, author Robert Coover has been experimenting with interactive text. Is this the way of the future, or just one of the ways?
Oh, this is fantastic. Oh my goodness, difference, punishment, interruptions. Mm-hmm. And I'm in a cube.
This is a 3D virtual reality cave, an amazing interface between writer and reader.
Oh my goodness, this is magical. It's all got huger and it's all...
Coover's work is fascinating, but can never really have a mass market. It's just too expensive. But at the world-renowned MIT in Boston, some of the brightest and most technologically savvy people in the world are trying to find out other ways we might record and transmit information in the future for all of us. The researchers at the MIT Media Center are also experimenting with new ways of sharing stories.
So what we have here is called the Never-Ending Drawing Machine, and it's an ebook, but an ebook of a different sort. It's made out of paper, and not only is the book itself tangible, but also it's possible to incorporate tangible objects into it. So this book is networked, and as we turn the pages, what appears on the page.
The idea is that people, even miles apart, could interact via the book, adding their own images and text to create a communal, interactive story.
So part of the idea of the project is to make interfaces for creative collaboration that go across boundaries. So one is generational, another one is cultural, another one is like acquired learning skills, for example, I could play this with my grandfather, though he was never trained in computer science or would not know how to turn on a computer, but that wouldn't be.
But he can turn a page and
he can turn a page and he can press a button. That's really easy, exactly. And he can just have the freedom of using stuff that he finds familiar in his environment.
For the researchers here, the key word is interactivity. The person reading the book is also adding content. They're also experimenting with new ways of recording and relaying information. For them, the senses of sight and hearing are just part of the story. A truly immersive method of communication would also involve the sense of touch.
We want to build technologies that are not just in our world, but they're also intimate with our own bodies. And they're communicating with us at every millimeter, at every millisecond.
Their idea is to record someone's movements, then allow a second person to feel them via the medium of a jacket as a kind of second skin.
And as you say, the implications for gaming and a sort of narrative world in which you can participate.
Absolutely. Imagine, if you can download your data for your grandson, who 20, 30, 40 years from now can actually live through a day of your life.
Oh my God.
And so you can connect people through space and time and cultures and ages. Stories is what makes us human, and we need to create new containers to tell those stories is what really drives me.
And exactly, I suppose it's about it all being human-shaped, not technology-shaped. The technology shapes itself to the human, not the human to the technology. And talking of shaping, I mean, Ken is very slim and properly built, and I'm a great... is it possible to try this on, do you think?
We can try.
Shall I have a go? I'd love to just to get a feel.
Let's keep it here.
Yeah.
And
sort of on, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. and so in your hands, if you move your hands, program is running.
Oh yes.
You will feel that it's as if I'm pushing you.
Yes.
And it's not like I'm holding you and moving you. It's just it's more subtle.
Yeah, almost more like a magnet being in a magnetic field, isn't it? That slight feeling of.
Exactly.
All these technologies are ways of recording and transmitting feelings, ideas, and stories. You could say that they're writing, but not as we know it. They're the next generation of communication for a world that is transcending the written word.
Even if reading and writing were to disappear tomorrow, I would argue that the changes they have made to us, technological, cultural, intellectual, and in terms of the adaptation of memory and the transmission of history, they would remain. We may have invented reading and writing, but reading and writing have reinvented us. But one thing that has never changed is our eternal love of storytelling, and that predates even reading and writing. And that's what I'm going to be looking at next time.